Hey everyone, my name is Ardentex, and welcome to Let's Play Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen. So, finally after 5 days, I've managed to scour as much information and all the potential artwork I need that I made personally to make this Let's Play a reality. And welcome to the world of Pokémon. Here we are with Professor Oak, and yeah, it's all very exciting. We're about to embark on a great adventure that's probably gonna take more than just a night at a single crazy creepy asylum. But with that, we're here at the character creation screen. We're a boy, yeah, that's true. And yeah, I think you should know by now that the name is Ardentex. Just gonna enter that in, then we should be on our... Well, goddammit, I can't even enter my name into the box. First generation games, you never fail to disappoint, I guess. You know, usually, when I'd play any RPG as a kid growing up, I'd always name, of course, the main character after myself, and then the rival or team member after my best friends, and then the girls after the girls I liked at the time. I'm sure a lot of you guys did that too. But as I've grown up more, you know, I really do make all the canon names more often than not now, right? Like Blue for our rival, or Link in Legend of Zelda, or, you know, Chrono in Chrono Trigger, or any Final Fantasy game. But yeah, here we are in our room. We played the NES for a little bit, maybe a little bit of Mega Man or the Super Mario Brothers, and yeah, let's take our free potion from our PC, and let's leave home. We're 10 years old, we should be able to take care of ourselves. Looks like a movie's playing on TV. Mom's not even paying attention, and yeah, it's Stand By Me. That's the reference on the television in our kitchen. And here we are in Pallet Town, the beautiful nostalgic music of grand beginnings of our adventure. I wanted to talk to that girl just so she doesn't interrupt us later on with the tutorial, but I will say though that this game does actually take the least amount of time possible to explain things to you, and I really appreciate that, you know? I haven't been really an active member of the Pokemon community for a few years, because I really, ever since the 3DS came out, I really stopped being a huge fan. And, you know, as sad as that is to say, with all the Mega Evolutions and the new 3D graphics, I really stopped being, you know, I guess closely tied to the universe, and I've played different games, more multiplayer games, and more real life taking over in general, but, you know, the least to say that this still is probably my favorite, not only RPG series, but game series of all time. You know, when it comes to card games, it takes, you know, the nostalgia of opening Pokemon cards growing up, from the base set and all the way up to all the Neo sets, takes precedent over some more recent card games, and so on, right? But here we are at the starter selection screen. Here we are, we're right next to Professor Oak's grandson, and we can pick any Pokemon we'd like. And I think for this one, I'm gonna start with Bulbasaur. And there's a few reasons, of course. All of my teams, especially, you know, if I play on-screen or off-screen, they are pre-planned, so I do have a team in mind already, so sadly the suggestions won't work, as well as nicknames. I already come up with all the nicknames for the Pokemon that I'll be using. Usually, they're references, and, you know, some of them are a little bit easier to catch than others, I'd say. But, well, looks like we can't continue with our adventure, or even start our adventure without the complimentary rival battle. Thankfully though, this rival battle has kind of a neat twist to it, which you'll see soon. So yes, we have a male Bulbasaur as our starter. I decided to name him Eden. And yeah, I don't think that's a reference that's incredibly hard to catch again. But for some of them, I think you'll have some trouble maybe. But as I was saying before, the new generation games really tend to be quite different from the older ones. And one of the biggest criticisms that Pokémon FireRed and LeafGreen especially has is that it's a little bit slow and it's a little bit flat or bland. But, you know, as someone who isn't a fan of Pokemon currently, I don't really follow the anime, and as I said, I haven't really given much time playing the new games. I found out that just the tutorial, for example for the 7th generation of Pokemon Sun and Moon, and I guess Ultra Sun and Moon now, it takes an hour for you to just get to the starter selection screen. You know, the prompt to actually begin your adventure. An hour, really? And in the same breath, huge fans of games will say that this game is slow. So that's a little bit weird. Alright, we've beaten our rival, and we somehow outsped the Charmander at the last possible turn. And that's because we're naive nature. So, in case you're new to the series, you've never watched Pokemon before, and maybe that's the audience I've gathered from playing a Batman game as my first Let's Play. Every Pokemon has its own nature that you randomly get, right, when you catch a Pokemon. And those infect, or, well, definitely not infect, unless they're a bug type, those affect their stats. As you saw when we checked the summary of our Pokemon, we have different stats. And each nature differently affects our stats. And naive nature, for example, makes our speed a little bit higher, but our special defense a little bit lower. Now, while that helped us defeat our rival because we were effectively at a speed tie probably, and that's why we outsped him at the last possible turn, later on in the game it's not the best idea, because Bulbasaur is, in my opinion, or his later evolutions, right, when we get to a Venusaur someday, it's probably the best grass type that this game offers. And partially it's because he's not only strong in special attack and attack, and he is half poison type, but he's also kind of a tank, and that's usually rare to see, especially in these games. You know, thinking about the first generations, there's not a lot of tanky grass types. Poison types are tanky, and that's probably why Venusaur as a Pokemon gets his tankiness from that half poison type. But so we've gotten to our first city, we've come to Viridian, but we can't really do anything if you've noticed. We don't have Pokeballs. What is this? I thought when we played a Pokemon game we get to have Pokeballs and we get to catch Pokemon and make our team and make a stronger bond, whatever the theme song says that inspires all the 10-year-olds nowadays. But we don't have any of that. Instead, at the Pokemart, the only thing we can really do is get a parcel. So I guess we can bring it back to Professor Oak. Yeah, looks like our Pokemon is growing more and more attached to us. It's been a whole of 3 minutes, you know, if you've just given us the Pokédex back there on the table, you old senile man. Can't even remember your grandson, let alone what to do when we actually pick our starter. Jesus Christ. But anyway, because Bulbasaur is our starter, that definitely significantly affects the rest of our potential team. There's not gonna be any more grass or poison types, but I'm fine with that. I think Bulbasaur is a great pickup. And maybe I could have re-rolled the save, right, in recording and gotten a better nature for Bulbasaur, but because we actually won our battle, our first battle, because of the nature, allowing us to outspeed the Charmander when it really mattered, I decided to stick with it. Plus, I think it's pretty cool if you actually just catch the Pokemon that you like and see what you get, right? Anyway though, yeah, our rival Blue, he's being same old cocky, arrogant Blue. He's, you know, he's gonna be better than us in every possible way and whatever. But we're not gonna listen to him, and we're actually gonna go and sweet talk his sister, you know, like all great friendships. There's always that friend that has an attractive sister, and, you know, we believe that Daisy, his sister, will actually give us the map despite what he says. And that's true. So, we have the town map, and with that we can check out the region of Kanto. I actually registered that item there so I can just use it right away from the overworld. You don't have to access your bag to actually use up the item. A lot of people don't do that until they get an item that they use often, but oh well. Alright, so we actually have our first Pokemon and we're on Route 1. Before I didn't decide to include any of the art that you see on the side or the battle that I encountered going into Viridian. Well, just because we couldn't do anything. I mean, sure, we could kill a Pidgey or a Rattata, but, you know, because we can't catch him, what's the point? One of the biggest side quests that this game has, well, not really side quests, but objectives, I guess, is to catch them all, right? And that's actually predicated on which items you can acquire, and there's a lot of really good items, and actually an HM that we can pick up just based on our Pokédex completion. And yeah, because of that, I'm gonna be catching all the new Pokemon that we can. Here I show off what the Pokédex screen actually looks like. In comparison to Pokemon we haven't caught yet, but only seen, right? The only way you can actually get the other starters, much like every other game, I guess what? Unless you're playing one of the 6th gen games where you actually pick up one of the other starters through the story, but it's not the same, it's never the same. Game Freak, you can't fool me, okay? Yeah, so basically, we go from route to route, catching Pokemon, and on Route 1, we can only find Pidgeys and Rattatas. These are your basics, and they're actually not that bad. From the first generation, I actually really like what they've done. All the Pokemon that you can find extremely early on, like we are right now, are actually quite useful. You know, I'll agree, using a Pidgey or a Rattata is really boring, and that's why I'm not going to do that. But if you're just playing for the first time, which, you know, surprisingly, I see a lot of comments of people saying, oh my god, Pokemon Sun and Moon was my first game and I love Pokemon now. Which is, you know, I guess I'm getting old, but that's really astonishing. Anyhow though, if you do want to get all the cool items and Pokédex completion, you might want to catch every new encounter that you can. And if you're playing along, you can actually, you know, just follow along with all the sidebar information, and you can see which Pokemon you can find in each different version. I'm actually playing an off-screen side-by-side run on FireRed. This is LeafGreen that you're watching actually, and it's kind of because of the theme I had in mind. But unless you see a Pokemon that I catch actually appear on the right of the layout, it's not a permanent team member. But I would say that if you have caught a Rattata, it's actually very useful to keep around, because it can learn all the HM moves, which are moves that actually interact with some of the items in the overworld, but we'll talk about that later. It can learn many of them, and some of them you don't want to put on your main team members, because they're not as good as level up moves. But again, we'll talk about that when we get there. Viridian City is pretty much a tutorial town. You can learn about all sorts of things, mostly like the menu, or, you know, what buttons do when you actually load up the game. But here in the school, you don't actually get any reward like in future games for reading the blackboard, but you can learn about all the status conditions. And yeah, this is an older game, so actually status conditions like poison matter outside of battle. But with that, we can actually buy stuff now. You know, we have our Pokeballs, which is actually pretty cool, and if you're following along and actually catching everything, you're gonna need to spend some pretty penny on that. Other than that, we have a potion that just heals 20 health, an antidote that cures poison, a paralyze heal that cures paralysis, all the status effects. Because, well, the eternally green paradise, as we saw it, leads to a forest, antidotes will actually prove to be very useful. And if you're not going actually to the west of Viridian like I am right now, you probably want to buy those as well. But seeing what we'll do in this and the next episode, we'll be making quite a few trips to the Pokemart and the center, so it doesn't matter. That tree that can be cut down, like I said, we're gonna need a hidden move for that, and yeah, nothing we can do about that now. But if you do remember it, you can come back later on and potentially get a pretty cool move. Sadly, the move that you can get behind that tree isn't all that useful in that game, and that's because of something that games, as they evolved, and the creative process of all the designers has evolved, different moves have different abilities based on the stats of the Pokemon. Again, I don't want to get into too much detail because I don't want to overload anybody with information from the first part who might not be familiar with everything about Pokemon, so I'm not going to be covering topics like hidden values like IVs and EVs. But what I will say is that if you've never played this game before, and if people like you exist, different moves or different move typings are either physical or special. So not every move is actually individually physical or special like the future games that you're playing right now on your DS or your 3DS. So the good way to remember for 3rd generation, which is the game type I'm playing right now, because this was a remake, of course, every Pokemon move that's tied to an evolution from every game ever made, right? Plus, the Dragon type is special in this game, and all the other typings are physical, which means that typings like, well, Poison or Ghost, that are usually in the future amazing special type moves that you can pick up, are all physical in this game. But enough about that, we'll learn about that a little bit later. Anyhow though, we have a Mankey here. And you know what? I think I'm gonna stick with this guy. There's a lot of fighting types in this game, but most of them you actually pick up later on in the game when you don't really have a use for a fighting type. And Mankey, for his base stats, has incredible speed and attack. And what do you say we check him out? He's also a male, so I'm gonna call him Spectre, because it's cool. And looks like his nature is impish. And impish nature makes your defense higher. Your physical defense, I mean. But it lowers your special attack, which is actually pretty great, because Mankey is a fighting type, and that's purely physical. So that's actually a very, very useful nature for Mankey. Hey, I would have preferred Adamant, but you know, you can't have everything in the world. And this is the other type, or species of Pokemon we can find on Route 22, which is a Spearow. And Spearows are incredibly strong. If you're looking for a flying type, and there's not a lot of them in the 1st generation to pick from, I would definitely recommend the Spearow. I'm not gonna use it because, again, I kinda wanna be original on my team, but it pretty much wiped out my team and it's only level 5, so I would definitely recommend picking up a Spearow. That said though, we've actually done plenty in the very first episode. We've started our adventure as a Pokemon Trainer. We've started collecting data on all the Pokemon around Kanto. And next time, what do you say we actually trek through the Viridian Forest and potentially meet up with our rival again? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.